Hello everybody, hello my dear friends, students, programmers. Today's topic is very important. We are going to discuss two dimensions lists in Python because we need them all the time, everywhere. We process tables, databases, we process computer graphics, uh, points with two different coordinates. So two dimensions lists are extremely important, and the most important thing about them, they implementing through one dimension list. So it's actually list of lists, and you can clearly see that in lines 2, 3, 4, and 5 when I define or declare my list. You see, this is three one-dimension lists. The difference between one-dimension list and two dimensions list is, first one, you need just one index. It's like a vector. In the second list, you need two indexes to address an element. Then I'm going to demonstrate you some basic skills working with the two dimensions list. So in line 7 I print the whole list. So if you don't provide any indexes, that means you address the whole list, line 7. If you provide just one index, you address one row in a list. So in my case, line 8 going to print this, because both rows and columns, they numbered from 0. And finally, line number 9, if you provide two indexes, you address just one element in your two dimensions list. In my case, it's going to be this number because it's a row 2 and it's a column 3. How to loop through the two dimensions list? I need to know dimensions. So first of all, I calculate how many rows in my list, line 10. Then I calculate how many columns in one row. So I assume all the rows are the same. And then I need for loop. So I'm looping through the rows. Inside for loop, line 13, I'm looping through the columns. And I increment each element of my two dimensions list by 1, and I print it again just to make sure it did work. So remember the most important rule: first index is a row, second index is a column. And if by mistake you think otherwise, all of a sudden you think it's the other way around, you may be in trouble. Believe me, the arrows like this, when you confuse rows and columns, are very, very hard to find. So keep in mind, first index a row, second index a column. Okay, so what do I expect here if I run my program? I expect to see the whole list. I expect to see the row, this one. I expect to see the last number, and then after increment, I expect to see the incremented values. Let's run it. Let's run my first demo, small list demo. And here we are. I see the whole list. I see one row. I see the last element, and then I see all the elements incremented. Good. Second demo. What if? What if my list is huge? It may have thousands or millions of elements. Real life databases may be huge. So how to declare such a big list? You can use asterisk and you can use initial value. So I created in line 17 12 rows, 11 columns list of floating point numbers, and each number is 0.1. However, and we discuss it with the one-dimension list, you don't have to have all the elements in the list of the same type. Remember, you can mix, for example, in a list both numbers and strings. It is allowed. So I did it. Line 17, I defined a big list, and I printed my big list in line number 19. Let's prove it. Let's run it. Okay, that's a big one. Big list. Good. And finally, very interesting feature, the two-dimension list doesn't have to be like a perfect rectangle. You may have jagged, so-called jagged list, when you have different size for different rows. It is possible, and I demonstrated that in line 21. My first row is shorter, row number 0 is shorter, but row number 1 is longer. It is possible. In Python, it is possible. Now I print my list. But if I loop through such a list, through such a jagged list, I have to be careful. I cannot assume all the rows have the same number of the elements. So I calculate the number of the rows. I start looping by the row line 25, but then only for each different row I calculate different number of the columns, line 26, and then I print elements. Sorry, I increment all the elements. So be careful, please. Not necessarily the list in Python is a rectangle. It's up to the programmer. Yes, most of the time, I would say, of course, most of the time we create lists with the same number of the items in each row, but it's not required. Let's prove it. So let's call the program. Let's see the third demo, jagged list demo. And here we are. I see the original list and I see the incremented list. So thank you very much for watching. Share, please. Share my video. Watch other languages on my channel. We have Java, we have PHP, we have mobile development. Also, I'm planning to add new languages to Programming Primer channel. All the best to you guys, and I'll see you soon.